Hello and welcome to Arsenal Analysed. I'm JC. I hope you're doing well. In this video, I break down Arsenal's latest results. Unfortunately, a 2-0 loss to Liverpool at the Emirates. A cagey affair with what was at stake. Liverpool going for the title and Arsenal pushing for the top four. Now, if you do go on to enjoy today's video, a like would be super appreciated. And if you're new around here, why not consider subscribing? So what will we be covering in today's video? First things first, I'll be going through some quick thoughts on the lineup and substitutes made by Arteta, followed by a breakdown of stats and tactics. Then we'll get into some deep analysis of the game, key moments, if you will. Then we'll go through some key players, some stats and heat maps, all that good stuff. And to finish up, some shout outs for those of you who were nice enough to comment on the prediction preview video. So without no further ado, let's jump into the lineup and substitutes. So looking at the starting 11, no real surprises from my point of view. You may have thought differently. Tomiyasu was pictured in training earlier this week, and even Arteta said that he'd joined in the day before the game. However, I did think it would come too early in what was going to be a very big game. Likewise with Smith Rowe, who only featured for around about 15 minutes in the game before Liverpool. With it being such a physically demanding game, I thought both of those players, it might have come a little bit too early for a start. And as we always mention in these videos for the regular viewers, the rest of the 11 pretty much picks itself. Now, with regards to the substitutions, all of which were made after the second goal was scored, the way we came out in the second half, we were really fired up, and we were unlucky not to go 1-0 up before Liverpool scored their 2 goals. And at this point in the game, we were really kind of chasing it. I felt like Arteta didn't think we would get much from the game being 2-0 down, especially after Firmino and Salah came on. And it really felt like Arteta was looking to protect, well, some of Arsenal's better performers of late, your Odegaards, your Sakas, the important players for what is now an even bigger game come Saturday against Aston Villa, resting some legs in what has been 3 games in 6 days. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think Arteta had that in the back of his mind, or was it more tactical? Looking at the statistics and tactics implemented by both managers, a fairly equal game on paper with regards to possession and also shots. And in previous videos, I have highlighted how many chances Arsenal are creating and how Lacazette really allows the other players around him, the wingers and midfield players, to come in and play and even score goals. But in these big games, they are decided by very fine margins. And by having that clinical striker up top, maybe things could have been a little different, given that both sides had 9 shots and a similar amount of shots on target. Another surprise for me as well is the second game running now, Arsenal committed 9 fouls and received no cards whatsoever. Has there been a change in the way referees are officiating Arsenal games? Now, if we have a quick look at the shape here, I think there's no surprise, at least in my opinion, looking at Liverpool to start with, the majority of their players are clustered towards their left-hand side, our right-hand side, which is where we seem to have most joy, with Odegaard and Saka pushing on quite high, having quite a lot of success, but also Cedric being the weak chink in the armour, if you will. And that is where ultimately both of Liverpool's goals came from. With regards to Arsenal shape, there are no real surprises. We saw a slightly wider number 8 in Xhaka and Odegaard in more recent weeks in this new system that Arteta has implemented. We've seen it being a little bit more narrow, but we did still see those wide rotations and those triangles out wide. We still did see Lacazette dropping in deep to make those numbers up in midfield, creating overloads and problems for Liverpool as and where he could. And when we look at the heat map, it's no surprise with both goals coming down our right, Liverpool's left. The majority of our play, especially when out of possession, deep red on that bottom right-hand corner there. And then the majority of what we did good, barring Martinelli, who was absolutely fantastic, came down that right-hand side. And Liverpool, a team that are very good in possession. We can see here in the top right-hand corner, which is where Trent Alexander-Arnold would occupy most of the available space, creating, I think, a front 5 at times. And then on the left-hand side, where a lot of the joy came down for Liverpool. Now, moving into some analysis, we'll start off with Liverpool's first goal, and we can see here in picture number 1, Thiago is on the ball. Arsenal set up in a relatively good shape. We're looking at that typical 4-4-2, a low block, very, very compact. Not really much more you could look at here. Maybe Cedric is a little bit wider than he should be. Saka is certainly picking up the wide man just above him, you can see there. But Cedric probably should be looking to tuck in a little better. It then asks a big question of Ben White because of where the ball is played. And, you know, Diego Jota has a lot of pace. And we can see this in picture number 2. Ben White does make up a lot of ground. He does as much as he can physically do, pushes him wide. Jota does what any good striker and forward would do and just get the ball on target, ask the question of the goalkeeper. And Ramsdale has been absolutely fantastic for Arsenal this season. He's single-handedly at times won Arsenal games, but players are going to make mistakes. And because of that reason, we can't jump all over him too bad. He will beat himself up more than anyone needs to, and probably even more so at this current time because, well, the England squad is going to be announced very, very soon. Moving into the second goal of the game, or the final one, in fact, there's not really too much to analyse here on screen. The reason we're looking at picture number 1, 2, and 3 is because Arsenal had opportunities, 3 of them, to clear the ball, clear their lines to make sure this attack did not happen. And because of the franticness of the way it unfolded, Arsenal were very much out of shape. We can see here in picture number 1, I think it's Ben White, and sorry, not Ben White, Granit Xhaka and Gabriel both have an opportunity to clear the ball. In picture number 2, there are at least 3 players there that can clear the ball. And then in picture number 3, Saka does attempt to clear the ball, but unfortunately it hits Robertson and falls in a really, really nice position in behind the Arsenal line, who eventually gets in right behind and prays the ball along, well, the face of goal. And, well, there are arguments to suggest that Ramsdale should be doing better. He should be getting to that ball first. But Firmino, being the intelligent, clever player that he is, he does manage to nick the ball in front of Ramsdale. And we can see there by the arrow where it eventually ends up. So defending can certainly be better for the first 2 goals. But if we have a look in more detail around the shape and the systems that both teams look to implement, we can see here in picture number 1, Liverpool playing their typical 4-3-3, but you can see a whole bunch of arrows on screen. So we can see here at right back that Trent Alexander-Arnold often did get forward to make those numbers up in attack, and that was highlighted in the heat map. And what we did see is we saw Mane push across into more of a central role, and then Henderson, as we can see here, he would either drop into a more right wing-back position, supporting the likes of Trent Alexander-Arnold, or coming deep to make numbers up in midfield, or even support the defenders when in possession. Thiago didn't necessarily do the same when getting forward, but he certainly showed support, and at times he doubled up in midfield with Fabinho to provide that base and that double pivot to protect the back 4. Arsenal went out of possession, as we can see, the same exact picture here. Arsenal set up in a fairly sort of low to mid block, and it's the typical shape that we've come to see over the last couple of months. We've got Kieran Tierney here on the left-hand side and Martinelli just in front of him. And what they were looking to do really down this left-hand side, and it's the furthest forward that we've seen Kieran Tierney in a few weeks now. They've really kind of pushed on Trent Alexander-Arnold to push him back. We've got Xhaka here in the first half, who is in much more of an advanced position, looking to double up out wide with Martinelli at times to, again, push the fullbacks back in Liverpool because they're such a threat. But we also saw Granit Xhaka in the second half. He came deep, more of a double pivot at times with Thomas Partey to provide that support to the back 4 to try and beat that high press that Liverpool are so good at doing. And then, as per normal, Odegaard, Lacazette and Bukayo Saka all ready to hit Liverpool on the counter-attack. Where we did see some problems, though, is Martinelli here on picture number 3. We can see he was effectively at times playing as a left wing-back to try and counter what we saw in Trent Alexander-Arnold, making up what was a front 5 at times, as already mentioned, with Henderson applying the support as and when we saw Odegaard and Lacazette pushing Liverpool back. when they needed to, occupying that space where Fabinho is to make sure he couldn't be the anchor in midfield. And what that did mean is that we were playing with a back five at times, with Kieran Tierney pushing into a more central role to Mark Mane, who was coming in centrally as well. And then we see that typical three-man midfield with Thomas Partey being the furthest player back. However, when Arsenal did have possession, we did see the typical 4-3-3 formation with Thomas Partey playing in that pivot role, something that he's done quite well. One of the most in-form midfield players in the Premier League, and he did have a very good game. One thing that we did see a noticeable difference in, though, for this particular game, in recent weeks, we've seen Xhaka and Odegaard play a more narrow 3-8 role. In this particular game, they were far more wide. As I said, you can see here Xhaka and Martinelli doubling up, making sure that Trent Alexander-Arnold can't get into a position or a threatening position. And you can't see Saka in this particular picture, but alongside him was Odegaard, and they were trying to apply the same pressure to Robertson. As I said in my preview video, for those of you who have watched, Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold, between the two of them, have got 20 Premier League assists this season, which is absolutely outrageous. Now, if we have a look at a few more slides before jumping into the shout-outs, one thing that Arsenal did really well in the first half, looking here at picture number 3, is, again, we've got these overloads. Liverpool in a really, really good shape in midfield. And again, the back four there. Thiago protecting the back four, making sure that the likes of Lacazette doesn't get the space he needs to operate in those half spaces that he likes. But Granit Xhaka, again, we can see these triangles, these wide rotations. We can see Kieran Tierney, as mentioned, this is the furthest forward I've seen him in recent weeks. Martinelli coming on the inside, and Xhaka playing a slightly deeper role when needed. And this time he's switched the ball all the way over to Saka, who isn't in frame. I put a little circle there to give you an idea of where he should be. But he eventually gets the ball. There is so much space on this right-hand side because Liverpool have switched their focus to the left-hand side. And this was something that Arsenal did really, really well against Norwich, for example, where we absolutely battered them. And we have seen more and more of this in recent weeks. Now, in the second half, you can see here in picture number 2, as mentioned, Granit Xhaka did start to drop a little deeper because of the threat. I think Liverpool were 2-0 up at this point, but he was having to drop a little bit deeper to counter this press that Liverpool had. At this point, we had Firmino and Salah, who were very, very good in that high press that Liverpool offer. And we saw Arsenal playing a little bit more narrow as well. Oh, I do apologise. Playing a little bit more narrow. Here we've got Cedric and Kieran Tierney, and then Xhaka and Partey having to drop a little bit deeper in order to, well, give Arsenal options. And we can see here that Henderson and Thiago are a little bit higher compared to the first half as well, applying that pressure, asking questions. Now, where Arsenal should have seen warning signs was just before half-time. We can see Trent Alexander-Arnold here in picture number 3. He picks up the ball in midfield as opposed to the right-hand side, which, again, is a bit of a problem because he's on the right, then he's in the centre. He's often creating overloads and asking questions of the opposition. But Arsenal in a fairly good position here. You can see the back line. You know, they're a very, very good position. Mane, he's here running at the defenders, and we can see Ben White in a good position as well. But he miscontrols the ball, and this was just before half-time, and there was a very similar opportunity for Jota, just after the second half started. That one was offside, but that should have been the warning to Arsenal in the second half. Although we started really, really, really well, the warnings were there, and we just didn't adjust. And then finally, before we do jump into some player analysis, picture number 4 here, we can see a misplaced pass from Thiago that Lacazette eventually picked up. And going back to what I mentioned in the previous section, having that clinical striker in these situations where you're not going to get many opportunities is absolutely vital. I don't know if it's a confidence thing with him, but eventually, as he tries to round the goalkeeper and realizes his route is blocked off, we can see here the run of Martin Odegaard, and the shot is eventually saved. This was at 0-0. Had Arsenal have scored at this point, it could have been a completely different game. So moving into key players, or players who I thought had especially good games, we've got Kieran Tierney, Thomas Partey, and Gabriel Martinelli. Kieran Tierney playing in a role that we're familiar with, one we've seen him have a lot of success with in a slightly more advanced left back, left wing back role. 81% passing completion, 3 completed long balls out of 7, 4 tackles, 1 clearance, and 4 successful duels out of 5. He done really, really, really well And will we see this more often moving forward, or will we see Kieran Tierney revert to a slightly more reserved, deeper left back position against the likes of Aston Villa and Crystal Palace in our next 2 games? Thomas Partey, probably the only player in this Arsenal side that would ask the question of Liverpool and Manchester City for a starting spot. I can't think of too many others, but another top performance from Thomas Partey against Liverpool, especially in that first half. Absolutely phenomenal. Such a nice player to watch. And we can see here on the heat map, again, very much situated to this right-hand side, which is on the heat map at least, what looked like the most obvious place Arsenal were going to get some success. Robertson was pushed right back in this game. Gabriel had his success, which we'll get onto in a moment, by exploiting what Trent Alexander likes to do, which is get forward. He's not an amazing defender. He's a good defender, don't get me wrong, but he is very, very good at getting forward. And, well, Martinelli exploited that very, very well. With regards to Thomas Partey, though, no surprise here. 82% passing completion, winning 9 out of 15 duels, 4 completed dribbles out of 4, 2 interceptions and 3 tackles. Absolutely phenomenal. He really is starting to look more and more like the £45 million player that we bought. And, well, things that you love to see. Gabriel Martinelli, probably not man of the match, but Arsenal's best player, should I say. And I don't know if it was the motivation he used when Klopp commented after Arsenal's previous game, with him potentially being one of the better players to come out of the Arsenal game. 69% passing accuracy, not the greatest, but what we really did like about Martinelli yesterday was how direct he was, those runs, asking those questions of Trent Alexander-Arnold, nutmegging Henderson, for example, nearly scoring after we were 2-0 down in the last 10 minutes, just outside the right-hand post. 1 key pass, 4 passes into the opposition's box, 100% completion on his dribbles, 3 out of 3, and winning 4 out of 9 duels. So an absolutely exceptional player. He is going to be a big game player in the future. He's played against Trent Alexander-Arnold and Cancelo this season, and, well, he's had them on toast. I might be a little bit biased, but that's just my opinion. Who was your Arsenal man of the match? Was it Thomas Partey or Gabriel Martinelli? Let me know down in the comments below. And just to finish off, we've got a number of shout outs for people who did comment on the preview video and my preview post over on Twitter. I don't think anybody got it right. We've got Judge here who went for a 1-1, Chippy Boy 1-1, History of Football Lover 1-1. So a lot of draws in there. Mostly Arsenal. Keith, he went for a 3-2 thriller in favour of Arsenal. Luca went for a 3-0 Liverpool win. AJ went for a 2-1 Liverpool win with some VAR controversy, which wouldn't have surprised me. David with a goalless draw. And last but not least, we've got Barrett here, who went for a 1-1 draw as well. So a lot of draws in there. And to be honest with you, I would have happily have taken a draw from this game, given how good Liverpool are. So that is going to about wrap things up for today's video. I hope you have found it informative. I hope you have enjoyed. And if you have done, please do drop a like on the video. It massively helps me out. The amount of support I've had in the last few weeks since switching the channel over to more of a tactical analysis-based channel has been absolutely phenomenal. The amount of subs has been brilliant. I'm now only 25 away from 1,200. And I think when starting all of this, I was around 50. So the support has been amazing. If you guys can help me out and subscribe if you're new around here to help me get to that 1,200, I would be very, very, very grateful. But as I said, that's going to about wrap things up. I'm JC, and stay safe and take care.